guys, it's Tinnia. I'll be responding to yet another video. Today I'm going to choose another Brad Mondo video. This one may not be so much about color. It's going to be finding out your hair type. Some people do not know their hair type, whether it be their curl texture or if their lack thereof. But today we're going to respond to see what Brad says. Sometimes Brad is really great at explaining the what he's trying to get across, but he does not sometimes always come through as to the why in the science area. So not that he's lacking, just that I'm going to add the scientific notations to his already colloquial breakdown and explanations. So let's see.
I didn't. After years of being a hairdresser, I've noticed one major thing. Most people have no idea what their hair type actually is. Is my hair thick? Is my hair thin? Is it fine? Is it coarse? Is it curly? Is it straight? Nobody has any clue. People with fine hair are notorious for saying,
okay, so one thing he just said that I want to clarify to you guys. In the professional world, we use thin interchangeably with fine. However, in the layman's term to client world, we never use the word thin because it is sometimes offensive to those who may feel that having finer textured hair is a negative trait of theirs. Therefore, we don't say, is your hair fine, thick, or thin? Because that's two things being redundant. You either have fine, which is the equivalent to thin, medium, which is the hair that's right in between being a thinner strand or a finer strand. Then that is of coarse. Coarse does not mean rough. Coarse means thick. So the analogy I give my students is spaghetti noodles, okay? You have angel hair, which is fine or thin. You have regular spaghetti thickness, which is medium, and you have fettuccine, which is coarse. So never think coarse means rough, and we don't say thin, we say fine.
if their hair is thin, it's not thin, it's fine. Those are two different things. Today we're gonna review things down to the nitty-gritty details. We're gonna figure out what your scalp type is. Is it oily, dry, normal? Do you have high density or low density? Is your hair thick or thin? Is your hair actually damaged or is it actually healthy? And also, what type of wave pattern you actually have. We'll go through everything from straight hair to the curliest of them all and everything in between. Now, this will help you a lot when figuring out what products are necessary for you and what shampoos and conditioners should you buy. And also, it's just interesting to know what your hair type is. That way we can all just figure it out once and for all and be done with it and make me happy, okay? If you want to figure out what your hair type actually is, then let's do it. Let's get started. First category is scalp type. Maybe something you never thought about before. Actually, probably most of you guys have thought about.
Probably most of you guys have not. A lot of you guys overly saturate your scalp with a horrible, most wrong decision of oils you could choose. Please never put coconut oil on your scalp. The molecular size is extremely large. It is far too large to actually penetrate into your follicle, which would be giving you some benefit from the oil. So instead, it just runs and makes you really itchy and coats your hair and then doesn't allow anything else to get into your cuticle. As it being such a heavy molecular size, it weighs down the cuticle and completely closes it. So anything else you put on after that does nothing but sit on top of the coconut oil and the hair shaft, making it extremely heavy, which is why people who have hair who are in locations like the Pacific Islands, Hawaii, those places may love coconut oil because they have coarse, meaning thick, hair strands, and they need something to weigh down their hair. But most people with fine to medium do not, and it is not great for the scalp.
But I want to...
It's not great for the scalp mostly because it feeds sugar, and it turns to sugar, it feeds yeast. Yeast is dandruff, it causes more scalp issues.
Review it because people get confused if their scalp is oily or is it dry or is it just normal. So let's review oily. Typically people with oily scalps, if you wash your hair in the morning and by midday or by nighttime, your hair is getting piecey and there's clearly a bit of oil on your hair strand, typically means your hair is on the oily side. In combination with that, if you look at your scalp and by the end of the day after washing your head, it is really shiny, you can actually feel oil on your scalp, means your hair is oily for sure, 100%. And if you have both combined, girl, you probably got an extra oily scalp and you probably have an imbalance of something, or you're stripping your hair way too often with shampoo. Now let's move on to...
Most people who have an oily producing scalp tend to wash their hair twice a day, which is what he just said, you're stripping it too much. You can overly shampoo, which makes your scalp say, oh my God, she just took away all of my natural oils. Now I need lotion. Oh my God, I'm ashy. That's the equivalent of what's happening. So when you take away your natural oils unnecessarily too often, then the scalp just goes into fighter mode, and it's like, giving you more oil, giving you more oil, because you keep taking it away. I'm giving you more oil because you keep taking it away. Girl, you need me. So the solution is to stop overly shampooing and allow the scalp to get to a natural state of production of oil that is not being agitated or disrupted by you overly shampooing it.
Dry scalps. Dry scalps, well, they look like the Sahara Desert, but besides that, you usually got some tumbleweeds going across your scalp, you know, because it's a desert. Comedy, you know, not my best thing. Typically, dry scalps are sensitive and prone to irritation. Sometimes you also experience what is considered dandruff or dry scalp. Dandruff is not the only thing that affects dry scalp. There is other things, so I'm not a doctor. I don't want to inform you on that. But if you have a little piece...
I'm not a doctor, but I went to school for scientific purposes, so I will inform you on that. Dry scalp and dandruff are not synonymous, nor are they mutually exclusive to each other. They are completely separate things. Dandruff is a yeast infection of the scalp. It is an improper imbalance of your pH balance. It is being thrown off. The hair sits at a natural pH of 4.5 to 5.5. When you throw off that, it can either go the lower way or the higher way, meaning it's going to go below 4.5 or it's going to go above 5.5. Either way, you have thrown off your pH balance. What happens internally when you throw off your pH balance? Most men don't realize that they also get yeast infections. Most women know that they do. That is an improper imbalance of pH as well. So what happens is you produce what's called yeast. That is what happens with dandruff. You produce yeast. Dandruff has a color to it. It itches. It makes you feel itchy. It gets so itchy that you can receive a pain from it. Now, dry scalp, however, is not that. It may be white and it may be flaky, and when you do this, you might see some little flakes go places, but it doesn't overly itch to the point that it's painful for you, and it doesn't overly itch to the point that you have to continue to agitate your scalp. Dandruff, however, will, and it grows in colonies, and it grows up the hair shaft. So you'll pull a piece of hair out, and there will be colonies of dandruff around those hair, all the way down to where it was on the scalp, because it grows upward, because it is something that is bacteria invested, and it can get underneath the follicle, and then you have an issue. You can go to your doctor, however, and ask for a prescription of something that will help. They have multiple different types of mousses, foams, oils, and shampoos. My favorite shampoo is ketoconazole nitrate 2%. It gives you the nitrate you need to get rid of the infection under the follicle site, and allows you to have a clear scalp, which then we can treat the rest of the things that come from that.
Pieces of white skin sprinkled around your hair, you probably have.
Also, a lot of people who think they have dry scalp have psoriasis of the scalp. This is a real thing that occurs. If you have psoriasis of the scalp, you will have big circular patches in your scalp in different areas that come autoimmune based. It doesn't come based on anything you're specifically doing. So it is very imperative that you go to a physician to figure out which one of these things you have. If you just have dry scalp, they will tell you there's nothing wrong, that it's probably a product you're using. If you have dandruff, they will give you a prescription for something that is to get rid of the yeast. It will be probiotic based. So maybe they'll give you fluconase as a pill, or they'll give you ketoconazole as the shampoo. But they will give you something to clear that up. And if you have psoriasis, they will inform you that you could potentially have something autoimmune, which is causing you to have this. And if they don't have a suggestion for that, they will still give you something to put on it. One of the things I think is called, I can't remember the name of it, so I'm not going to try. But I know that it is a foam they put on, and it helps you. I have lots of clients who have psoriasis of the scalp. Lots of people who have psoriasis of the scalp tend to like to get color because it dries the patches off of their scalp and makes it feel like it's clean for a little while before it comes back, because they can't do anything about it if they don't have the proper medication to treat it.
Have some sort of dry scalp condition, your scalp is dry. It can also be itchy, and you can also feel a lot of tension on your scalp.
A lot of times people create their own environmental factors that cause dry scalp. When I say that, what I mean is, this is an analogy I could give you guys that helps the most. If you've ever fried chicken in vegetable oil or grease, you know that the grease never coagulates. It always stays very much liquefied, right? However, if you tend to fry bacon in a pan and it creates its own grease, if you leave that grease that the bacon created on the stove, it will coagulate into a white, waxy looking type of oil base, right? It'll start to look like lard instead of vegetable oil. Okay, that's because it is lard. It's fat coming off of the pig's skin. However, that's going to scratch that. So, if I were to take the bacon grease and pour it on top of the chicken grease, they will naturally separate. The chicken grease will stay liquefied, as that is the only state it can stay in. Okay, these are states of matter. This is science. Now, the bacon grease or the lard will coagulate again and create a very thin shell of lard on top of the chicken grease. It will look like it's all hard. If you poke that with a knife, it will break apart. And it will be like ice on top of the ocean, where you see chunks of ice floating, but you still see the water underneath. This is the same thing that happens when you put conditioner on your scalp, whether it be leave-in or regular rinse out. If you put your conditioner, your hair masks, your treatments on your scalp and massage them in, and they don't specifically say for the scalp, it will create a thin layer of product, which is from the conditioner, because conditioners have what are called fatty alcohols. They are put into this to make the conditioner not stay moist on your hair and allow the nutrients of the conditioner to actually penetrate through the cuticle and somehow reach your cortex. Remember, that's where your strength is. So, if you put conditioner on your scalp, it will create this thin layer. And as the days go by, your natural oils, which are the equivalent of the chicken grease, will push up because they're liquefied and they're trying to be produced so where they can coat your hair strand. But they can't because this thin layer of conditioner, fatty alcohols, are sitting on top. Remember, lard is fat. Fatty alcohols are also in your conditioners. So this will now create a flake. It will push this thin layer of stuff up. So you will then think you have dandruff or dry scalp. And really what you have is product on your scalp that your natural oils are saying, move, I'm hot and I'm trying to get from under these covers, but you're covering and suffocating me. Can you please get out of my way? That is what's happening.
Like it's tight, like you need to rip it open and, stretch it out. If it feels tight, your head's dry. And now we have...
That is accurate. If it feels tight, your head is dry.
Normal scalps. Anybody with a normal scalp will not get a buildup of excess oils on their scalp and their hair strands by the end of the day after washing their hair in the morning. And if you don't notice any dry skin or flaky skin on your scalp, or your head doesn't have any tension, so on and so forth, everything we just reviewed. If you don't have any of those symptoms, you probably have a normal scalp, which is great. It's the only time I like being normal is with my scalp. That was the easy bit, okay? Now we're gonna get on to things that are a little more, you gotta think a little bit to comprehend, okay? Should be simple though. Now we're moving on to hair thickness and hair density. This is one that makes me so annoyed the most. It's when people confuse the two of these or just pretend they're both the same thing, because it's not. They're actually two different things, not one singular thing, so get it right. Hair thickness is describing the actual thickness of an individual piece of hair on your head. So if you pulled that hair out of your head and you looked at it, is it thick or thin? Then we have hair density. And that describes, how big your damn ponytail is. When you pull your hair into...
Okay, I love that he gives colloquial descriptions, but I don't feel that he goes to explain the definition properly for you guys to understand. Density is how many hairs you have per square inch on your scalp. So let's say that this square is your whole scalp. So however many squares you have per square inch, okay? An inch is this big, okay? This big. So per square inch, how many hairs you have. Some people have 3 to 5 hairs out of each little follicle, okay? Some people have 1 to 2. So in that square inch, if you have 1 to 2 per each hole, let's say there's 20 holes on this little square inch, and you only have 2 hairs out of each hole. 20 times 2 would mean you have 40. So your density would be low to normal. Now, let's say you have 5 hairs out of each. 5 times 20 is going to be 100. That's far more hair per square inch. You're going to be considered thick because you have almost quadruple what the other person had. So there is going to be a low density or high density. Low density ponytail is going to be about this. High density ponytail might be around this. And it's all based on how many hairs are coming out of your follicle per square inch. Square inch is an inch in a square.
The ponytail, is it large? Is it small? That's describing how many strands of hair you have on your head. Those are the two big things that I want you to remember. Hair thickness and hair density, because that's the one that people get so hung up on and confused about.
Again, thickness is each individual hair strand and how thick it is, whether it's fine, medium, or coarse. And density is how much hair you have per square inch. So you can have me. I have fine hairs on my head. So a lot of people assume that I have a lot of hair because I have fine yet high density. Meaning, although my hairs are very fine, there are a ton of them per square inch. So it gives the illusion that I have thick hair. And I do not have thick hair. I have very fine hair. So it makes it seem that there is a lot when it's really not. So right now, my hair is overly oily because I had a slick back ponytail. When my hair gets overly oily because it is fine, it's going to stick together. So then it makes it look like, oh, okay, you just have a normal amount of hair. However, if my hair was curly right now, it'd be super huge because my hair being fine allows it to have high gravity. And then per square inch, I have a lot of density, which allows me to have big amounts of hair.
And like, look now, I don't get it. We'll get it. So, thick or thin, you ask? What hair type do you have? Is it thick or is it thin? I know what mine is. Thick, baby. Now, to measure hair thickness, if you have a piece of sewing thread, I'd recommend grabbing that. Grab a piece of thread, pluck out a piece of your hair, and compare the two side by side. The hair is naturally a little bit more consistent back here and a little bit thinner up here, so pluck from back here.
That is because, so here's what he's about to tell you to do. He's telling you to pluck in the back. Don't do that. Pluck in the middle. I'm going to tell you why. Every single person who's ever been born on the face of the earth has their thickest or coarsest or kinkiest or curliest or frizziest hair in the back of your head here because of the occipital bone. That is the bone that you feel in the back of your head that curves. Okay, your occipital bone curving allows the hair to come out of the follicle in a different way. So people who used to get relaxers, we used to coin the term the creamy crack. The reason we did that is when it's time for a relaxer touch-up, generally this portion of your hair freaks out and gets super kinky, and if you go too long, it can break. It's what you call going through a withdrawal, the same as if you were strung out on drugs and you need it really bad. That is why we called it creamy crack. Okay, so that means if you have really, really curly hair, you probably need to use more product right there. That's probably what gives the frizziest. It's not because you lay on it. It's not because you play on it. It's not because of ponytails. It is because the bone produces a follicle that comes out differently than anywhere else in the head. Okay, now the reason I said don't pick from here and don't pick from here, the opposite is the front of the hair. We call the front of our hair baby hairs, and colloquially we don't know why we do that. We just say baby hairs, right? Okay, so this is why. When you're born, you have hair all over your body that is termed vellus hair or downy hair, okay? Vellus hair or downy hair is the soft, fine hair that you have on your face, and it is the hair that transitions you from fine hair on your face to thick hair at your scalp. So in between there, you will have a very fine amount of hair that lays very softly and is considered vellus. Well, because babies are born with vellus hair, we have started colloquially saying baby hair because it's just as fine as the hair that's on a baby's body. That is why we use the term baby hair. So I wouldn't pick from the front because that's not very representative of your hair type. But I also would not pick from the occipital bone area, which is right here. I would pick from under here, right there, which is going to be your healthiest hair because generally the sun and elements do not touch that hair. Or I would pick directly from the top, which might be your most damaged hair because the sun and all of your elements do reach it. Anytime you touch your hair up, you generally do it there. So those are the areas I would pick if I wanted to figure out my hair texture and or my hair porosity.
Here. If your hair is just as wide as the sewing thread or slightly thinner, that usually means you have thick hair. That's right, you have thick hair. And of course, if your hair is much thinner than the thread, you have thin hair. If you don't have a thread around, you can also take the hair strand, run it through your fingers like this, and if you can feel the hair, very much so, it usually means you have thick hair. If you can't feel it, you kind of just like rub along it, and if you don't look at it while you do it, you're like, oh, am I touching the hair or not? You have thin hair. Now we're moving on to high or low density. To check the density of your hair, pull your damn hair back into a ponytail. Check the circumference. Circumference is the measurement around an area. If you have low density hair, your circumference of your ponytail will be less than 2 inches. Medium density will be 2 or 3 inches, and high density is 4 or more inches in circumference. Another way to figure this out,
Guys, if you're not very good with math, you're not going to be able to guess the circumference. So you're going to need to find a way for you to be able to understand what circumference is. So you're going to need to measure to make sure that you're accurately doing this. However, most people don't have a measuring tape. That's the easiest way. Put your ponytail and take the measuring tape and go around the ponytail. Because if not, you're not going to get an accurateness. Doing like this is not going to help you. So yeah.
You can't pull your hair into a ponytail, or if you don't have a tape measure, well, you can look at your hair in the mirror. If you can see your scalp without moving your hair around with your hands, you can just look down and see your damn scalp.
Then it is low density.
Well, that probably means you have a low density hair. And if you can't see your scalp, if that is covered up, honey, like camo in the forest, you got high density. Congrats. I'm jealous. I got low density, baby. Actually, my doctor told me I had low density hair, so it wasn't a fun doctor visit, you know? I actually kind of had a heart attack, so. We work with what we got. Next, we're gonna learn if your hair is damaged or healthy. People all the time are like, dude, my hair is so damaged and dry. And I'm like, where? There's not one split end on your hair, not one. So let me give you a few little pieces of criteria that describes damaged hair. And let me try and help you figure out if you actually have damaged hair or you just think you do. Because people often get that confused. If you're
more often than not. So the first thing I want to get into with this healthy and damaged hair is color, okay? Lots of people assume that if they have, okay, let's say you have my color hair and I'm like, Tinnia, I feel like my hair is so super dry. It's not holding a curl. It's just not doing what I want. I want it to be healthy. I want to go back black. Everyone automatically assumes that if they go back black, that their hair is now going to be some grand entrance of health. And that's only because darker hair tends to reflect more light. So darker hair looks extremely shiny, which makes people feel like it's extremely healthy. However, that could not be a least more true statement. Now, blonde hair does not tend to reflect light. So let's say you're a natural blonde and you're around a level 7. So it's like an ashy tone. Ash is not going to have any warmth, which is not going to be reflective of light, which means it's going to look dull. And dull is not the same as dry. So people tend to feel that if their hair looks dull and not shiny, that is also dry. And those two things are not synonymous and they do not equate to the same definition.
If your hair tangles easily, girl, it's damaged. Yeah, no, if you can't run your hands through it at all times, typically.
This is not always true. If you have textured hair, meaning curly, kinky, coily, you cannot run your hands through it all the time. Now, when he's explaining this, and the only reason I'm reiterating this is for people to understand, if you have curly hair, you're going to have tangles at times because the way our cuticle lays is completely different than a straight hair cuticle. I always describe cuticles to my students as shutters on a house or blinds on a house. So when your blinds are completely shut, that is a closed, tight cuticle. So imagine a hair strand, so like this, and all of the blinds are shut. Well, when I run my hands through this, it's going to be easy because there's nothing to snatch, right? Now imagine you have curly hair, okay? And curly hair does this. I don't know if you guys can see, but it spirals, right? Okay, so as it's spiraling, there's still shutters on that, right? But they're slightly raised because cuticle on curly hair is a little bit open. So it's as if your blinds were open straight like this. Not all the way, but not down. So they're like this. Now, imagine they're like that, and they're also on this hair that's spiraled, right? Let's see if I can get this focused. Okay. Can you focus on me? So you got this spiral, and you got these cuticles that are going around. So what's happening is this piece of hair is getting stuck to this piece of hair. So you have these two pieces of hair that are coiling, and they're doing this to each other. That is not the same as you having damaged tangles. That is just curly hair touching each other, because it's like a rose thorn sticking and poking. Okay, so take that into consideration. So if you would like to know if your hair is damaged from tangles, what you would need to do if you have kinky or curly hair would be to wet your hair and detangle it. Now, once you detangle it, if you go like this and it's still like, this is getting damaged, because the weakest point in a curl is the tightest turn. Okay, let me say that again. The weakest point in a curl is the tightest turn. So, because of gravity, the tightest turn is going to be at the very bottom of the hair, and it's going to turn really tight, which also means it's going to be really weak, which is going to be inevitable for you to not get split ends. So you're going to always get some splits down here. That's why it's very imperative for you to get a haircut every 3 months. Every 3 months, every quarter. I base this off of the Farmer's Almanac. The Farmer's Almanac tells us when it is time to harvest, when it is time for things to grow based on the moon and the earth and the position that we're in, as well as the seasons. It is the same with your hair. Your hair grows fastest in the summer, slowest in the winter. That's why quarterly haircuts will allow for you to be prepared for each season, and they will inhibit and exaggerate growth if that's what you're looking for.
Your hair is dry / damaged. If your hair, is just not growing, some people...
That is not a thing, okay? Let me explain. Your hair grows from under your scalp. That is why even people with extremely damaged dry hair always have a root if they have color. However, you may not be retaining your length because, like I said, those splits are going to break. So it's going to cause you, every time you reach here and there's friction, your splits are going to break because they're being rubbed against things, right? So your hair is growing, it's just not keeping what it's growing.
Actually just can't grow very long hair naturally, but if your hair definitely has those ends that look a little compromised along with it not growing, your hair is damaged. If you look down at your ends, if you can see them, if your hair is long enough and you're like, look at them and you're like,
the only time hairs do not grow and when it is medically induced, and in that case you should see your physician to figure out what autoimmune disorder you may be having or what medicines are contraindications for your growth to exceed how it's supposed to. There are 3 hair phases: anagen, catagen, telogen. Anagen is the growth phase that is under the scalp and it is preparing to come out of the follicle. Catagen is your active growth phase and it is all the hair from here to here. And telogen is when the hair decides to shed. So one phase cannot happen without the other phase, or now your growth cycle is inhibited, causing you to have a medical condition. These things generally happen with people who have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, and people who take blood pressure medicine or who have the gene that is produced in menopause that causes them to need hormone balance. So they will give them testosterone to allow the protein to be back into their hair, to allow them to regain the strength they need for their hair to stop breaking and to grow. So yeah, everyone's hair grows. It's just slower than others sometimes. Hair grows on an average half an inch a month. So you should only be receiving 6 inches of growth a year. So if you get more than that, your hair grows fast. If you get around that, maybe 5, then your hair is growing normal. But if you're not getting that at all, then yes, you may have something internally that is causing that to happen, because growth is internal.
There's so many split ends. Like, it looks tragic. It looks so scary. Damaged hair. If you pull a piece of your hair and you stretch it out like this, if it stretches, your hair is damaged. If your hair just snaps, your hair is healthy. Congratulations. If your hair doesn't dry for like literally 10 hours and it's not, you know, very high density, if your hair is just medium or low density and it takes
that means you've shot your porosity and now your hair needs protein.
Hours and 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 hours to dry, your hair is damaged because it's grasping onto that moisture because it has no natural moisture. So it needs to grab onto that moisture and hold it for as long as possible. Your hair is damaged. And if it doesn't take that long to dry, it's not damaged. If when you brush your hair, you're getting clumpy.
This also is about porosity. I don't know why he didn't explain this. So low porosity hair means that it holds on to moisture really, 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 really long. It keeps it in there. Normal porosity hair dries pretty much kind of fast, kind of slow, in the middle. High porosity hair soaks up all this water, and then as soon as you turn the water off, the water beads off of the hair because their cuticle is extremely tight and their cuticle is extremely loose. So it allows things to go in, but it allows things to wash right out. Whereas a low porosity hair has an extremely tight cuticle and it is hard for things to get in. People with low porosity hair, it takes a long time for their hair to lift because it is hard for the lightener to get into the cuticle to go to the cortex to diminish the melanin particles. Whereas people with high porosity hair, their hair will lift extremely fast because their cuticle is flooded open and it allows all of the lightener to go in and diminish what they need to diminish. Now, certain hair types tend to be prone to those. I have low porosity hair. It takes a really long time for my hair to lift. My hair holds on to moisture really well, but it is very tight cuticle. Then I know people who are more so in the 4 categories, 4C specifically, which is a really tight coil, that their hair tends to be soft and cottony, fine, but high porosity. So you can get to platinum in one setting accidentally just by using 20 volume. That would never happen to my hair as low porosity. I will always have to use 30 volume on my roots and lift it twice, or I will not receive this shade that I need. That is because my hair holds onto water for such a long time. The more water molecules that's in my hair shaft, the less the lightener can go in and break apart the melanin. Hope that makes sense.
Lumps of hair coming out, or you're getting just maybe more than like 10, 15 strands, your hair is probably damaged.
You should shed 100 strands of hair a day. So if you've had your hair in braids or a ponytail or been naturally curly for a week, that would be 7 days of hair strands. So 7 times 100 would be 700 hairs you should lose when you detangle or debunk or take down whatever you're taking down. Always keep that in mind. 100 strands a day is normal to healthy. So do not get worried if you have a ball. No, don't count it. But now, if you have a ball every day, then yes, there may be some issue with you not retaining the hair that is not supposed to be intelligent phase. Now, we do have shedding cycles. When the winter ends and the spring is beginning, anagen phase hair is about to start, just like when the flowers start to grow again. So you're going to shed all of the dead hair right before that happens. So don't worry if you're shedding a lot right towards the end of winter, beginning of spring.
And if you're getting less than that, your hair is not damaged. It's so healthy. Wow, good job. Is your hair shiny? Do you look like a well-groomed pony? If it's shiny, your hair is healthy. If it's not, you either need to wash it or your hair is damaged. It's damaged, okay? We're on to curl pattern now, guys. Okay, so curl pattern, it's a touchy subject. If you don't get this right, some people get mad at you.
They get mad because you didn't take enough time to fully research curl pattern because you have straight hair. And it feels like that curly girls get left in the wind, especially kinky curly girls. And it feels that you do not know what you're talking about enough to give the information. So it's not that they're going to get mad, it's that they're going to feel that you don't know enough to give them the advice because you haven't fully researched it.
99% of people have a curl pattern, okay?
85% of the world is curly. The other percentage of people in the world have wavy to straight.
It's very rare that your hair is pin straight. If your hair air dries and there's any like sort of bevel, like literally this much, you have wavy hair. Pretty much everybody has wavy hair. You don't really come across anybody with pin straight hair naturally. There's 3 sort of subcategories. There's wavy, there's curly, and there's coily. Wavy being the least curly and coily being the most. That didn't really make sense, but you get it. We're gonna begin with 2A. This is the least wavy of them all. You just have that slight little bend, that little coo coo coo, but not like tight. I have 2A. You got just a little bit of texture. 2B, then we're getting into the actual, your hair is actually wavy. You have some wave pattern, okay? It's just a tiny bit more than 2A. What a weird coincidence. 2C, your hair is wavy like this, and they're tight. They're like, there's a lot of them, girl. 3A, which is just the classic.
I have 3A, 3B hair.
Girl, it's like you took a curling iron, but not really. It's a more lived in natural look. Just imagine like a curling iron curl. 2B, you have those spiral curls everywhere. They're like, and they're much smaller than the previous 2A. They're more defined, they're curlier.
The reason I named 2 is because most everyone has 2 curl patterns in their hair if you have curly hair or wavy hair. And remember earlier I said your occipital bone produces a different type of hair. So most of my hair that is super, super, super tight is gonna be right there, and it's going to be a different curl pattern than under here and around here, and that is just how most people's hair is. So if you're a kinky curly girl and you feel like you have to use way more product here, it's not just you, homie, I swear, it's me too.
3C. Oh, now you got the corkscrews. When you pull your hair down, your hair expands a lot. It goes back up. The curls are even tighter than 2B. You get the point. Little sections, all curly all over the place. Beautiful. Now we get into level 4, you guys. This is the coily hair, okay? This is a little bit more of an irregular wave mixed with an irregular curl. It's a tighter, curlier, wavier sort of hair. Basically take 2C and 3C and mix them both together, and now we got 4A. That is just a slightly coiled look.
Brad, what are you talking about, friend? You can't take 2C and 3C and combine those and it create 4. First of all, people in the 4 category also have a kink, meaning there's a rough texture to their curl. People in the 3 category are the curls that have the slick. Have you ever seen a person hair, they brush it back and their waves are, but the hair is slick? That is because their cuticle does not rough as much as someone in the category of 4. So, I'm not sure what analogy he was trying to produce by saying 2C, 3C make 4A. But 4A is actually my favorite hair type of all because 4A straightens really well, 4A does twist outs really well, 4A holds wash and goes really well, 4A colors very well, and 4A holds protective styles really well, okay? 4A has a very tight curl to it, and it has a roughness to it. It's not as soft as 3C, so it can hold things more. 3C has problems holding things like twist outs because their hair is very slick and it's slippery. And 4B has more of a zigzag pattern, which is maybe what he was trying to explain, whereas 4A still has a spiral.
And definitely when you pull it out, it bounces back, okay? And it's much longer when you pull it out. Now we have 4B, which is very simple. You guys, I'm not gonna go into this too far. You just have a little bit of a tighter coil than 4A. 4B is just a little bit tighter. We're getting a little bit more into an afro at this point. You know?
4B is a zigzag. Okay, when I say zigzag, I mean it goes like this. First, it coils really tight, okay, like a spring. And then it doesn't. It does this flat thing like this. And then it coils. And then it zigzags. So when you pull a 4B curl, you'll see a tight spiral and then this flat pushed zig thing and then like a tight spiral. So it has a zigzag pattern is what we call that. But it still does curl. So it's not the same as 4A at all. The hair doesn't even look the same at all. The curls are very, very, very much tighter.
You know? And then we have the curliest of them all, of all the lands, which is 4C hair. It's magic. It is very voluminous, very quick.
It is very much magic. The 4 category is the only hair that defines gravity. It's the only thing on earth that defines gravity. The kinkier the hair, the more representative of trees and bushes and earthly things there are. Our hair was meant to be a magical thing. It protects us from all of the elements, and so people who have gravitational hair are protected as a whole. If you were to grow your hair in this huge natural fro, you would have tons of protection from the sun.
Oily, very kinky, and very beautiful. So those are all the different types of hair you can have, and scalps, everything under the sun. I mean, you guys, you wanna know what mine is? I have a normal scalp, no dryness, no irregularities. It gets oily, you know, not too fast.
I have normal scalp, low porosity, medium density, and fine texture. Those are the categories with a 3A, 3B curl pattern.
That's not too slow. I have low density hair. I don't have a ton of it. Girl, the older I get, the more it's going away. I'll miss ya. Bye.
So guys, thanks for checking me out today. That was me responding to a Brad Mondo video on hair type. He really did go over a lot of stuff. I'm absolutely obsessed with Brad's videos. I hope that I can explain more of them in a more scientific way so that sometimes some of this stuff can stick, especially to those of you who are interested in going to school. I would highly recommend you go. If you already have the passion to make videos and try to show us how to do things, then if you go to school, it would only make your videos pop more. And hey, you might go viral faster. So I'm going to sign out now and say thank you guys. Make sure that you like the videos, subscribe to the channel, send me as much things as you want to. My Instagram handle is Tinnia_Monroe. You can find me on Snapchat as _Tinnia. Send me as many videos as you want to that you would like me to react to, or just go to my Facebook, Tinnia Monroe, TINNIAMONROE, and send me some videos. Hope to see you guys next time.
Your boy, they waiting on who next.